me 2 seconds. Perfect. Perfect. So again, hello, everybody. Welcome to our Code and Career here at Sabio. My name is Alexa. I am the Director of Admissions here at Sabio. We do have a couple of special individuals, so I'll go through and let them introduce ourselves. We have a senior instructor and 2 alumni joining us today. Barnett, do you want to go ahead and start off?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this today. I wanted to speak about our free courses that we offer.
My computer touching. Sorry, Barnett.
No worries. I wanted to speak about the free courses. We were right there. So on sabio.la, under resources, there's a tab that'll take you to our free courses. There are 3. One is an HTML CSS. That's hypertext markup language and cascading style sheets. Then the next one is our Bootstrap with CSS, which really, we do a resume usually on Tuesdays. We'll start from a blank screen, a blank slate and code up a really nice looking resume for you. And then on Wednesdays, we jump into JavaScript like we did today. So we go over our JavaScript basics and show not just its structure, but what you can actually do with it. So that was fun. So we got really 3 reasons why you would want to come to our free workshops. The first one is just to see if this is a fit for you. Okay. So this is different than just taking, YouTube videos or watching somebody else code. You have access to me and other instructors. You have access to our Slack channels, to our alumni, and to everybody else that's currently working their way through our free courses on their way into cohort. What this means is you are jumping feet first into a community of developers that will embrace you and all your problems because we've been there, okay? So if you had any hesitancy about whether or not coding was for you, give this a try. Come to the website, register for the courses. They don't cost a dime. When you get the first one, HTML, CSS, we're going to walk you through downloading all the software and extensions that you need to get up and running within a half hour. All right. And you'll be actually coding and creating web pages with HTML. The second reason is financial. Okay. If you're coming into cohort, each one of these 3, if you complete them before you join cohort, we will give you a $250 discount on each one. So potentially $750 off the cost of your tuition by completing this in our pre-work channels before you go into cohort. For me, the third reason is the most important. Okay. We will almost overload you with information, 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, 6 hours on Saturdays. This is a lot of coding. Okay, we're going to move you through a lot of material in a short period of time. Having the extra few weeks to get a jump start on your coding is critical. All right. We have a lot of technologies. If you have this head start, we have some technologies that others may not be able to get to that didn't take advantage of this before we move you into React. And it's critically important that you get as much of that stuff done. We call it labs. So we've got our working with Ajax calls, remote systems. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And by completing most, if not all of this prior to joining a cohort and getting the financial rewards that go with it, you're going to have a real leg up on where you are. Okay. And all of this ends up on your resume. That's the last thing I wanted to say. Everything that we do here is geared towards you getting a great job in tech. That's it. We don't sell computers. We don't have an agenda. We just want to make sure that when you sit down at the table with a recruiter or somebody from Meta, and that you are confident about what you know, right? And that's what we train you for, right? That's pretty much wraps that up. Alexa, do we have any questions?
No, if we do have questions, please feel free to unmute yourself or drop something in the chat and I'll fully pause. But I like to start off with Barnett and our senior instructor because here at Sabio, we do have a lot of free resources that are available to students. That way you can dip your toes in things or you can earn scholarship deductions, get a head start on this learning curve because we know it's scary. Anything as an adult when you're going into a career change is scary. So we like to start with the free resources. That way, if you do have to cut this short and you can come back and watch it later, you're not missing out on what is out there and available to you guys. Outside that, going back into the other individuals that are with us today, we do have our two alumni, Linda and Joe, who are going to be able to share more about their experience of what brought them to Sabio, what it was like being a student here, and how they got into the industry. So great point of contacts to ask questions. Again, we don't know what we don't know, but they kind of do. So I'll give you guys both a second to introduce yourself and then we'll continue on the presentation. Linda, do you want to go first? I see you unmuted first, so.
Sure. Hi, my name is Linda Escalante. I graduated Sabio December 2021. I did not have any previous coding experience prior to that. I was in the financial industry and I decided to take a leap and, switch careers. I would say everything that Barnett said about the courses, just take advantage of it. It's free and it's definitely going to get you prepared for those 12 hours. It's going to get you comfortable with coding and all that stuff. I did a little bit of that and I wish I would have done a little more, since like I mentioned to you guys, I didn't have any coding experience and it was challenging. However, it was so rewarding at the end. I was able to land my position within 2 weeks of graduation. And here I am.
Love it. Thank you for sharing. Joe, do you want to go next?
Yep. Hey, everybody. I'm Joe. I'm a Navy veteran. I got out of the military and was unemployed for a little while and trying to figure stuff out and ended up going to Sabio as I had spoken with a friend of my mother's who's a CTO at the company she works at, and he suggested that a boot camp would be a fine way to get into the career field. So I went to the boot camp, and I did all of the pre-work, and I even did like a JavaScript Udemy course before. I didn't finish it, but I started jumping into it before I started at Sabio. I was really scared because this was such a big commitment. Um, I had kind of goofed around in different careers after the Navy. I didn't have any like skills that I could apply anywhere, so I went into different avenues and they all kind of dead ended, and so I was a little afraid to put 4 months into this program and then uh you know not have anything to show for it. So that's why I did all the extra work up front, was I wanted to make sure that this was something that I could do all day every day, kind of, so the week leading up to Sabio is supposed to be like a 12-hour a day program. So I didn't do 12 hours a day, but the week before, I didn't do 12 hours a day, but I did spend like a 9 to 5 at the computer every day for the week before Sabio started, just to be like, all right, cool, I'm good with this, let's do it. Um, and that that pre-work that I did really did set me up to excel in the program. I then got my job offer like a week after graduating, which is pretty fast. It's not usually that fast. But I think that the amount of work that I put into it set me up to be able to talk about my skills and talk about what I learned a lot better. So I graduated last year in January. So I just passed a year since graduating, and I've been working in the field since then. So it's been great. It's the best job I've ever had, for sure. It's awesome. So.
Like it. Thank you guys so much for sharing just a little bit of your guys' background and what brought you to Sabio. We're all clearly here for a reason. We're probably not happy with where we're at, or we need that career shift, whether that's an income or the flexibility of working from home, or maybe you're a problem solver and you just like coding, or maybe you don't know what it is and you just know you need a change. So again, we have backgrounds of all sorts, and what's exciting is we're really going to dive into all of the pieces. So what is a full stack certification? What is software engineering? What does the market look like? And then what does Sabio offer in regards to helping you get there? So we started off with Barnett, and he mentioned the free courses. I do want to just take a second to show you guys how to access them. So if you go onto the internet, you type in sabio.la, you will be brought to our main home page. You should see the resources tab. You scroll down to free courses. You're able to enroll in all 3 of the ones that Barnett guides you through on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Once you enroll into these, it does not just open up a magic window into the class. What will happen is you'll actually get an email with a Slack invitation. Slack is our communication board. It's going to allow you to access our general channel. We have a pre-work online help channel, and then you're able to direct message instructors. From there, Barnett will actually introduce himself again. He will give you his workshop schedule, and then you'll be able to begin the class. Hopefully that all makes sense. During that process, we're secretly building something called soft skills, teaching you how to work with communication boards, introducing yourself to senior instructors, because again, it's matching the industry you're about to enter. So again, these are the free courses that Barnett was going into. Moving forward, we're going to dive into what is a full stack certification. What does this all mean? So as we dive in and looking at a full stack certification, a developer and engineer is a programmer with a technical skill that allows them to perform in a client side, server side, middle tier, and back end database development environments. Okay, what does that mean? I'm going to go ahead and pull on Linda. Do you want to go ahead and maybe give a, let's say, 4th grade material breakdown of what that means?
Yeah, so pretty much being a full stack developer is that you can pretty much build a website on your own from start to finish, like from gathering the data, putting all the stuff into the tables, doing the connection into the middle tier, doing all the functions and putting all together what you actually wanted to do, and then do the connection to actually show whatever the user is actually going to be clicking and filling in and all that stuff, and like gathering all the data and put it into the database. So yeah, it's pretty much like being able to build a website on your own.
Like, yes, for sure. So when looking at a web page or an app, when you open it up and you see colors or a layout and the design of it, would that be considered front end development, or would that be considered back end development?
That would be the front end, and that is part of CSS and like Bootstrap and Material UI or whatever they actually are applying.
Perfect. And then when thinking about the way that it communicates, so if you click on things or a link or a video is playing or it takes you somewhere else, would that be considered front end, or would that be considered back end?
So pretty much like all the interaction, like what the user is doing, all that is the front end. Is like just how it looks and everything, and the functionality whenever it moves from one page to another, all that is done in the back end. So you actually put the links and build everything to where do you want the page to go, what data, where do you want the data to be stored, and all that stuff. So that would be the back end.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Like I said, sometimes we read these and it's still like, okay, well, what does that mean? And what am I doing? So again, when looking at Sabio and a full stack certification, we are guiding students through both ends of the spectrum, essentially, right? We're going to teach you the HTML, CSS. We're going to teach you the JavaScript. We'll move into your Bootstrap and React. And then for a backend language, we cover something known as C#.NET. During the back end training, Joe, I'm going to come over to you next and bring in our apprenticeship portion and how we help students kind of put it all together. Because when just going through classes or front end classes, back end, you're kind of putting the tools together, but we haven't fully put a web page together. So do you want to talk a little bit about the apprenticeship and what that part looked like?
Sure, yeah. So the students, we call it the prod phase because you're working on your product, right? That's the apprenticeship that Alexa's referencing. And what the way Sabio works is you spend the first few weeks, well, most of the program is you learning a bunch of material, like Barnett said, like crash course, like get it fast and keep moving, right? And then a few weeks before you graduate, you get introduced to an actual entrepreneur that wants to build a certain application. And Sabio is jumping in to say, yeah, we have like all these devs. We're going to build what's called an MVP, but it's like a base level application. And we're going to build it from scratch, right? So depends on where you come from, but you could join the prod phase when a product is new, and then you'll be building it from scratch. You could join it halfway through the creation of that product. In either case, you're going to get a great benefit, because in the case where you're building from scratch, you're going to learn the skills to build from scratch. In the case where you jump in the middle, you're going to learn the skills to read someone else's code and improve it, or add your own code to it, right? So, but the takeaway of this whole thing is that this is a great opportunity to actually apply all these skills that you've been learning. So up until this point, you've been building projects that you can use for your portfolio, but they're really just school projects, right? Once you jump in on the prod phase, you're building a real life application that depending on how good this entrepreneur is, could be out in the real world being used by real people soon, right? So this is a real thing. You start to learn, you move into less of a student status and more into like an employee status, where you've got senior developers that you're reporting to every day. You're being required to get code pushed up, accomplish little mini projects that you're being tasked with. And it's really what gives you what makes everything make sense. All this stuff you've been learning, well, here's why you had to learn all that, right? It helps you, again, further build out your experience and your resume. So now I can say that I worked at this company, and when I go into an interview, I'm not just some person that graduated with a couple little portfolio school projects on my resume. I've actually worked at a company. I've worked with deadlines, and I'm able to communicate that in the interview and with whoever you're talking to. So we always talk about having imposter syndrome when you graduate, right? You're going to learn an incredible amount of things in a very small amount of time. And when you graduate, you're going to be like, there's no way somebody's going to hire me. I barely just learned this, right? But working on the prod phase material helps cut through that a little bit, because you're able to say like, oh, I actually do know how to do this. I didn't really know that I learned that because everything was so fast, but now that they're telling me to do it, I can see how it plays out in the actual code and in the actual application. Now I'm like less scared a little bit. Like, it never really goes away, but you feel a lot better when you do go into those interviews, and that comes across when you talk to somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. I think practicing like you play in a way, right? You can practice a set drill and you're not with your full team, but then when you come together, it fully connects and you're able to pull it together. Again, I think recapping just what the full stack certification is, being able to fully put a product together. You're able to see a web page from start to finish. And so by looking at Sabio's coding bootcamp, you're able to not only leave with the hard skill sets in these languages, but we spend a lot of time as well building your soft skills, going through prod and prepping you for the industry and the interview process to be able to give situations, tasks, actions that you were taking and the results that came from it, right? A successful web page. So again, that is kind of a breakdown just of what it is that we're doing and what kind of industry we are entering. As we take a deeper look into the industry and just what kind of jobs, things that you'd be applying for, the salary bracket that you would be entering. Here at Sabio, we do have a very high placement rate. It's an 81% placement. So 4 out of 5 students are entering the industry with full-time positions, and they're sitting in a salary bracket between 65 and 105,000. So those are exciting things when we look at a fast-paced boot camp. Again, when we take a look at the 2022 data, this is from a government-based web page. What we're noticing is a median salary around 124,000. This is a median salary for engineers. We're coming in very close for a 4 to 6 month boot camp, right? Again, after year one, you're only going to be able to increase within this industry. I know a big concern is the amount of positions, right? We hear about layoffs all the time. We just went through something like COVID. Is there going to be enough positions for me to go and get? When we look at this number, it definitely is trumping a lot of the other career fields, such as education and nursing, right? We can go through that list. When we look at engineering, it has a 25% increase, which is very fast compared to any other industry out there, right? Software engineering is the heart of every single company because we live in a very tech-based world. There's nothing out there that isn't connected to an app or a web page, and they're going to need an engineer to help build that. When looking at the industry, I'm going to go ahead and pull on my alumni again and just kind of talking about what was it like to go through applying for jobs? How many applications were we pushing out to enter this industry? Was it challenging, or is there a lot of opportunity out there? Again, you guys were able to experience it. So what did that process look like?
Well, I mean, I graduated December 2021, so I feel the industry was a little bit different. However, I met someone that was having a very hard time finding a job while I was going through the program. So therefore, I had the biggest fear of like, might not gonna be able to find a position. And this is something that I really wanted to do. So I took applying very seriously. Like I applied within a week. I think I had 1,000 applications. Like I really committed to find a position for me. In my case, I was open to work anywhere. I would always say, I don't care if I go to Alaska, I just want to get in the industry. And luckily, my first position, I was able to land a remote position. And like I said, it was within 2 weeks of graduation. So you have to put the work in order for you to get the reward. However, the industry, like it was challenging. I'm not gonna say imposter syndrome is real. There was a lot of interviews. I cannot say I failed at the interviews, but I can say like it did challenge me, and it really made me realize the things that I had to work on. And even though it was a very short period of time before I landed the position, it really put me to think, am I really ready for this? However, I feel like with all the project that we did, it really mimicked what we are actually doing on our day-to-day. So yeah, Sabio definitely does prepare you for you to be able to land your first position.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Linda said, that it's about what you put into it, honestly. The market is super competitive. There's a bunch of layoffs just took place recently. So there's going to be people in the industry that are looking for jobs that have better resumes than you, right? But it comes down to how aggressively and how much energy you're willing to put into this and how bad do you want it. I would say I was in a similar boat to Linda, where I did a weird thing before I went to Sabio where I knew some people and I exploited a couple connections to get a tech interview. And I did a tech interview with no tech knowledge, and I did terrible. I did really, really bad. And this guy was just like, dude, you don't know anything. Like cause I'm a computer person. I thought I knew some stuff. I didn't know anything. And I just bombed this thing. And so when I went to Sabio, I was like, I know in my head, I was like, these are hard interviews. I know how hard this is going to be when I graduate. I'm going to work really, really, really hard to make sure that there's nothing I don't know. So when I go to an interview, when I graduate and they ask me a question that's really hard, I'm not going to bomb that question. And frankly, like my first interview outside of Sabio, I did not do great. I did very bad, and they didn't hire me. And I went back to the books and studied and prepped for the next interview. And I did multiple interviews within that first like week and change, just like Linda was saying. And then I got my job offer. But I was also in the same boat with over 1,000 applications a week. I didn't feel like I had a choice, right? I didn't have a safety net to save me if this didn't work out. And so it was like, there's no turning back. I just spent 16 weeks in this. I worked really hard. I made everybody in my life kind of pause what they were doing so I could do this. I I don't have a choice right now. Like this has to work out. And so um again, it comes down to that. Like I work with graduates now from Sabio and help them find jobs. And the ones that there's a difference. I can tell you right now, there's a difference in the people that show up and I meet with that are working really hard. They're gone. They don't meet with me anymore because they go get jobs and they're gone. And then I meet with other people for 4 months at a time and I go, hey, so what'd you do last week? And they're like, oh, I slept in. Oh, I didn't. Well, I'm sorry. Right. And you're like, well, you're never going to get a job with that kind of like motivation. So that's kind of the bottom line of it. Yeah, it's super competitive. Yeah, there's people getting laid off. Yeah, there's maybe less job openings because the market's doing weird stuff and AI is taking jobs. Okay, whatever. Are you gonna show up and like work really, really hard? Because nobody's gonna say no to that hard work. Like if you put in that energy, there's no options except for a positive outcome. Like there's no way that you're gonna put in that energy and get nothing for it. I've never seen that. And I've been working for Sabio uh for almost a year now, because I graduated and then started working with graduates about a month after I graduated. So I've never seen somebody show up and work really hard, and that's through all the ups and downs of the industry over just the last year. So yeah, just sorry, I just wanted to tack on there and just say
No,
it's
I love
absolutely
that.
about your motivation.
And I think it's important to know that here at Sabio, we have cohorts that start each month. So you're filtering new students each month. It's not like we only have a fall, a winter, and a summer start, and you are only seeing students every 6 months. You're seeing hardworking individuals land jobs every single month because of the dedication that they're putting in. I definitely think tough love can get you somewhere, but
I do want to add to that as well. Like when I graduated, we did not have career services. We didn't have mentorship. So with what I'm trying to go with that is like Sabio would always give you like the best tools and we'll come up with like really great things that are actually going to help you to be successful. Like I am part of the mentorship as well as Joe. And, I see people that whenever you show and whenever you put your work, like it definitely shows. But I would have loved to have a mentor at that point. But like, that's mainly the reason why I'm doing it now, because I know how much help it's actually giving it. So like I said, Sabio is definitely going to give you the right tools for you to be successful.
absolutely. I always mention to students, we're not building hobbies. We definitely need a strong why behind what we're doing because this is what you're going to be building a career around. Barnett, I saw that you had your hand up.
Thank you very much. Look, I see the direct impact that this mentorship program is having. Okay, it's a wonderful tool that we added. We also added another tool that neither Joe nor Linda was able to make use of, echoing Joe's first interview experience. We now have for all students at all parts of cohort an AI-driven interview. Okay, so it's actually kind of a requirement. We want you to start doing at least one interview a week right from the beginning. And you choose out of the column what section you're working on, how many questions you want to take for this interview, and what difficulty you're going to take. And it will give you those questions. You're on camera with an AI, and it's doing exactly what a regular interviewer will do. They're going to analyze body posture, the number of times you say, whether or not your answer was cogent, and it gives back the greatest feedback, right? So using that tool to practice interviews before you go to interviews is really exciting. It's really exciting that we now offer that. I just wanted to put that in. Oh, and one other thing. At the beginning, it is true. It seems like we're asking you to memorize a dictionary because we're giving you all of these terms, right? But here's the thing. While we train you individually at the beginning, we're already doing stand-ups and agile scrums, and we're using those methodologies early on to build a team, to show you how to work as a team. And when we get to what Joe described, which was our product phase, you now will work as a cohesive whole. Everybody's working on a single application, and it's collaborative coding. So you're never out there by yourself, right? You are working with a team to bring a product to life. And it's that element of collaborative coding that really needs to be stressed, and teamwork, being able to work with, a team. But I just wanted to bring those points up. Thank you.
No, I love it. You guys are all awesome. And adding in the different points. I know there is a question in the chat, and I think it's a perfect time to go into the training options that Sabio does have. I know here we are currently working towards our March 4th cohort. Do apologize because unfortunately these dates on the part-time program are not correct. So I'm going to have you guys listen very carefully when I go over the part-time schedule, and I apologize ahead of time. But we do have 3 different pathway options that are starting on March 4th that are all going to guide you through the free foundational courses in the very beginning, the front end development, your back end, and then your prod. I will say our most common and most popular is the 17-week fully immersive. This is what both Linda and Joe went through. It is a 4-month program, and it is going to be very full-time. It is Monday through Friday. Technically it is 8 to 8. Our live instruction is from 9 to 6. And then on Saturdays it is from 9 to 1. In this full-time program, we do have everything built into your day. So this is going to match the structure of the industry the most. For example, you're going to start each day with a stand-up lesson. That is something that you do mimic in the field. You give a breakdown of what you're working on, the blockers you're fixing, and where you expect to be at by the end of the day. You go into your live lectures. You have coding hours built in the morning. You have an hour lunch. You go back into a stand-up to start off the afternoon. You go into another live lecture, more coding hours. You have a 30-minute dinner. And then we have built-in homework for you to make sure you're ready for the next day. Right. Before moving into our part-time program, I want to touch base with both our alumni, Linda and Joe, to talk a little bit about your day-to-day structure and maybe how that mimicked what you did within the 17-week program, because I would say this is the one that builds the most soft skills throughout the entirety of the program, not just prod.
I feel it's been so long, but I mean, we did have some Zoom meetings with the instructors just to go over certain things. It really depends on what part of the program you're in to talk about how much you meet with the instructors. But we did have like a lot of videos and stuff that we had to go over, different projects that we had to work on. And of course, like, we had like, it was more like self-paced. Like, it's not really about like comparing yourself with each other or all of you are doing the same thing. It's really self-paced, and like you go on your own rhythm. Of course, like there's certain things that have to be finished by a certain amount of time before like tests and stuff like that. Sabio has something that we call the queue. That is where you actually go to ask questions if you get stuck with something. That's actually something that I definitely recommend that you take a full use of it. So you don't get stuck in something for a long period of time. Of course, this is the type of career that they're not gonna give you just the answer, that you're expecting is gonna put you to think. It's a logical thought process that you have to build to be successful in this career. So like, of course, you're gonna need to, come up with your question and what you actually look up and all that stuff. But the queue is a definitely great tool. I would say my day-to-day, I was in California back then, so it was a 9 to 9 when I did it. So, I would start doing whatever I had left for the prior day, worked on the stuff, joined the queue as I needed it, take my lunch. And sometimes we had meetings with the group. Sometimes we didn't. It's just really I really followed whatever was on the schedule, and just make sure that whenever the instructors were not in the clock or whatever, like I actually used to meet with the cohort to just answer questions and help each other and go from there. Yeah.
Would you say that mimics kind of what you do now? Because you're in a remote setting and you would need to communicate on a communication board with colleagues on a project or go into a stand-up. But a lot of times you are self-coding and getting a project done unless you need assistance.
Yes, actually, my company is a little bit different than what Sabio was. You know, we actually had to have daily stand-ups back then. Now I only have 1 week, one meeting a week. So it's
my
only
God.
Thursday. So I actually have to make sure that I work the hours that I'm supposed to, you know. And my group is great. Like whenever I need help, I can reach to someone and they can help me out. But of course, I have to know what I'm asking and you know what the problem is and what I actually tried before I actually go in and ask someone. So I think like the queue definitely prepares you for you whenever you actually go into the industry to how to come up with your questions and what you actually like already like look up on your own and what still this didn't work for you. So it is definitely like a way to prepare you to come up with those questions during the real life while at work.
Perfect. Joe, did you have anything you wanted to add? with regards
Yeah,
to-
I would just again, everything that Linda says is good, and I would add to that that you know, that queue, the queue is where you go to ask instructors for questions, right? And it teaches you, so when you go to like sign up to talk to an instructor, it requires you to fill out a little form, and I've seen on a website somewhere like a course review, somebody was complaining about that form, and that makes me laugh because uh if you think about this like it's a real job, like you wouldn't go to your job, you wouldn't go to your boss with stupid questions, right? Like if your boss told you to go sweep the break room, you wouldn't say, well, like, okay, well, where's the broom? Like you'd go look for the broom and go find the broom and then go do your job, right? And it's kind of the same, it's like this similar concept where it's uh you don't you don't ask every single question that pops in your brain. Being an engineer, period, is about solving problems, right? So you get a challenge, you need to go try to figure out how to solve that problem. And at a certain point, you may spend a lot of time Googling, a lot of time. I mean, this is what I do at my job every day still is I watch YouTube videos, I Google problems, right? And come up with, because as you're writing code, you'll find one little sticking point and you're like, I don't know exactly how to make it do this. And so maybe I'll do some Googling, I'll read some documentation, I'll go on YouTube, and then maybe I can come up with a solution to that. And I keep going. And at some point, I eventually run into one that I just can't find anywhere. And then I get to go to my senior dev, who's way too busy with way other more important things. And I get to ask him for, 10 minutes to show me this one sticking point so that he can, I mean, he's so busy that he's like, okay, what do you need? He's going to help me through it. And then he's got to go back to work. Right. And that's perfect. I get to go back to work too. But if you're going to this person with like a million questions and you're not doing the work on your own, then you're not an engineer. You're just like a robot. You're just, you're not a problem solver. Right. So does Sabio like reflect what it's like in the real world? Like, yeah, absolutely. You don't have a queue, you don't have like a sign up sheet to talk to your boss, but you better not go to your boss with dumb questions that you haven't tried to solve already, right? And Sabio kind of teaches you that by forcing you to do it that way, right? And yeah, so that was kind of the only thing I wanted to talk about was like the queue is really useful. The instructors give you great advice, great help, but this really is a program that you need to be an adult, treat it like treat it seriously, because when you graduate, like we just talked about, the competition is fierce. Don't just try to skate through this program and then graduate and be like, great, now where's my job? Somebody give me that job that you promised me. No, it's still going to be work, right? So go into it with that motivation and that grind mindset to crush it, and you're not going to have a problem, and you're not going to have a problem with the instructors going to them with a bunch of dumb questions, right? So uh yeah,
Yeah. No, absolutely. There's a reason behind our madness, because I know the main reason I was asking you guys as well, because it goes right into the question and then in the chat. Barnett, I did see your hand, so I am going to pull on you again. But the question was, is there a huge difference from being in person compared to the remote setting that we are now officially in? Sabio is fully remote. Our classes are live, but we are remote. And I think you both kind of hit that. We spend a lot of time, yes, self-coding or looking and problem solving. And then you have the resources to seek out help. And that is the same as what you will be doing in an industry, right? You guys are becoming engineers. So it might be frustrating at the beginning, but again, there's a reason behind our madness.
Yeah,
So
I would say to Darian, your question of online versus in person, what do you want to do when you graduate? Do you want to work remote or do you want to work in person? And most people probably want to work remote. If you want to work remote, it's a good time to start practicing, right? It's a good time to start practicing, learning how to communicate through all of your computer stuff, learning how to manage your time because you have distractions. I got a dog laying next to me, and my wife's working remote in the other room. Like, there's distractions. How do you manage those and still get your job done? Uh, so when I did it, I was on the East Coast and I was working noon because it's still 9 to 9. I was working noon to midnight, right? So like we gotta figure this stuff out. I know you're probably asking about in person because you want to be able to get like BAH benefits, right? And I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's a great idea. If you can do that, then that's some short-term income, which is solid probably. But long term, I don't regret not getting that extra BAH for doing it remote because I make a lot of money now. So I don't miss it. I'm not worried about that BAH. Sorry, Barnett. I think we were supposed to go to you and I jumped in.
We're gonna go to
Hey,
you next. I do want to put one little damper in there because I know right now we currently do not work with any VA benefits unless you are approved for vocational rehab in a remote setting, which does not come with BAH. So just kind of cut that one or nip it, I guess. We don't have any in person, so we can't work with the GI Bill. That tech is officially done until Congress reinstates. So there is no BAH. So really the benefit of going in a remote setting is to prepare you for the industry. Like we mentioned at the very beginning. Barnett, you can now take it away.
thank you. Look, I wanted to address two things, the queue and what the experience of remote learning is like. Okay. Our queue, as Joe mentioned, is structured in a certain way. Okay. At the end of the day, we solve problems and we solve problems with with code. We take a big problem, we break it into little parts and we solve the little parts until the big problem is done. A lot of people are unused to the way you come to us through the queue. And what we do is we ask you to ask yourself questions about what it is you're currently stuck on. And we want you to look at that problem from several different perspectives. A lot of people will solve their own problems going through the queue even before they get to an instructor. Okay. So there's a method to that madness. But I also want to make clear when you come to a cohort, you will be with an instructor all day. It is not the case that you are going to be off on your own and come to us only through the queue. Okay, we do our stand-ups with our cohorts, and we are on a Zoom call all day long except for lunch. Okay, so you have access to us all the time. Okay, you got a small question, come right on in. If it looks like it's something that has some meat to it, it has some couple of layers to the problem that you have, you will be directed to the queue where the same instructor is going to pick the queue up and answer it. But we need you to go through the process of problem solving, of taking the problem you've brought to us and actually articulating it in such a way that it breaks the problem down. And it's in that articulation that a lot of folks actually solve their problem. And they'll just jump back into the main room and go, okay, I fixed it. This is what I did. Great. Now you get to do a code review because just telling me that you fixed your code doesn't satisfy me. I want you to now walk me through what the problem that you originally had was, what you did to develop a question to answer it, and then exactly what did you do to solve it. Okay, and then you're going to be talking about your code and being comfortable in that. I just wanted to touch on those 2 points.
No, I think that's huge because again, they're not just left on their own, and it might have been made out that way with the videos and self-teaching because you are expected to be on a computer. Everything that we do is live. You just are able to book that individual time. So thank you for taking the time to explain that a little bit deeper. Moving into the next program that we have starting on March 4th is going to be our part-time program. Like I mentioned a second ago, the hours are not correct on this. Our day part-time program will be starting in the summer. So for our March 4th cohort, the classes will actually be taking place in the evenings. It will be on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And then on Saturdays, it is that 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And everything is based out of the Pacific time. With our part-time program, it's expected to take you about 6 months to get through, and then you'll be able to start the career services portion. So it does add up to a little over 36 weeks when we put it all together. And then I would say that you would need to add in at least 10 to 12 hours of additional coding or homework in order to be successful. Because again, your class time is going to be the live lecture and the live stand-up time. So you're going to want to make sure you're practicing that lesson or that code and gaining that skill set before you go to class the next day. We do have a self-paced option as well. This one is designed to be completed in 36 weeks, but that's going to be dependent on how much time you actually dedicate to the courses because it is self-paced and it's a build your own hours. So with this, you will have access to our instructors from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. Mondays through Fridays. So that will be the queue, and you're able to go in and book as much individual time as you would need. And then this one is the only one that does not have prod. So that's going to be the biggest difference. Typically speaking, our tuition sits at $15,000. So we usually see that this one is dropped in the tuition. It's $10,000. But we actually have a March special going on. So it doesn't actually look the same. We do usually have that one at a lower price just because it does need to be paid for up front. But we also understand that you're not getting prod and you're building your own kind of time with our instructors. Do we have any questions in regards to our full-time program or our part-time program though? I'm going to go ahead and cover up self-paced for now. Perfect. I can go ahead and post my Calendly link in the chat before we all go. That way, if you do have any questions or you want to get into the March 4th cohort, you can book on my calendar and we can get you set up. We can dive into scholarships and different financing options as well. I will say the biggest thing with that part-time program, the one that is starting in the evenings, we currently do only have a March 4th date. Hopefully we'll be able to get one up in May. Otherwise, we should have this day schedule that you see starting in June or July. So lots of possibilities and things coming. My biggest recommendation is getting on a calendar. That way you can make sure you don't miss an upcoming start or you don't miss some of the scholarship opportunities. And we really come up with a game plan in regards to setting you up on your full stack certification. Awesome. So before we head out, I'm going to go ahead and open it up. I know that it's not very often that you have alumni and a senior instructor all in the same place and you're able to ask questions. You guys did a good job of asking them in the chat throughout, but we have about 9 minutes before the Zoom is over. And if you guys have any questions, they're here to kind of answer.
Yeah, Anne had a question that I didn't see. It says, how did you do so many applications?
Oh,
How
sorry.
did we do 1,000 applications in a week? We're unemployed, so we have nothing else to do. That's you spend 40 hours a week doing something, you might as well be applying for jobs.
So one of the ways that I actually did it, I honestly didn't want to be in front of my computer all day. So I started using LinkedIn and Indeed on my phone. So on my downtime, instead of being scrolling on Instagram or Facebook or anything else, LinkedIn became my social media. Every job that I would look, I would actually apply, and a lot of the stuff that I did on my phone was like quick applies. And then if I would see something that caught my attention for a job that I want to apply later on, I would just save it, and then the next day I would actually apply. So but like I said, I took it very, very serious. I took away all that time that I was dedicating to things that were not gonna make me money, and dedicated the whole time into submitting applications. So it was a job on its own to submit those many applications. On top of that, we did have to prepare ourselves with the technical questions and coding and all that stuff. So even after the 17 weeks, it's not like, oh, it's done. No, it's when it actually starts. Like the hardest part happened, but it's still, you have to keep a certain schedule. You have to make sure, if you really want to land a job like this, you got to put some work. So you got to study, you have to code, you have to keep those, those skills that you just learned. It's a lot of information that you just like, digesting. So like you got to stay on top of it, applying and doing all that in order for you to be ready for those interviews to come.
I like your idea of replacing the social media time and doing it on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is booming and it continues to grow. There's a lot of connections on there. So we definitely recommend building up your LinkedIn. It's actually part of your career services. It's one of the first things that we do. But I know most of us have the handy dandy, you can't even see it, iPhone. It tells you how much time you spend on social media. So that's a great way to switch it over. I have to dedicate 4 hours because that's how much I used to spend on Instagram, right? And that's how long I'm going to be on LinkedIn. And if it doesn't say 4 hours at the end of the week, you did not pass your job interview goal for yourself.
But yeah, that really made it easy for me. Just like if I, instead of being in the computer just like all day applying, just have it on my phone. If I was like right before going to sleep, I was applying for jobs. If I was like just taking a break, I was applying for jobs. Like just the same time that you really spend on your phone for other things, that's the time that I was spending for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever heard in regards to
And
adjusting
guys,
time.
Sabio changed my life, Sabio really changed my life. Like I was living in California. I'm not saying that I was unhappy, but like I was able to relocate to Hawaii, and like it totally, like I would have not been able to do that if it was not for Sabio. So honestly, like I feel like they definitely provide you with the right tools for you to be successful. It's about dedicating yourself, and you can do it the same way that Joe and I did, and all the other people out there.
Yeah. All the other people.
And then I have a quick question. So as far as uh, finding a job afterwards, I know that Sabio has the program to help out. But is there anything, so either Linda or Joe, that you've done also outside to help, prepare for a job? I'd like to know anything like that.
I would
If you
say
guys
no, when you're graduating, you like what's the saying? It's something like you know lots of things, but you're not a master of any of them, right? Master of none, something like that, right?
right.
So the general recommendation that Sabio gives is that you continue working on the skills they teach you, which is absolutely the right answer. I agree with that 100%. And so you kind of start applying before you even graduate. They'll open the floodgates for you to start applying like a week or two before you graduate. And then you graduate and you've already got recruiters calling you by the time you're graduating. I did multiple like actual interviews, recruiter calls, and then interviews before graduating from Sabio. And then that's kind of what helped me get a job fast after Sabio was failing those early interviews so that I would be better for the later interviews. Um, and then so then when you graduate, you'll get linked up with an alumni mentor like Linda or me, or we have a bunch of other people that do it that are all great. And you'll get matched up with somebody who's going to help further refine, like 'cause you'll get while you're in cohort, you'll get work on your LinkedIn, you'll get work on your resume. I mean, everything is going to be addressed. Once you get passed off to one of us, we will likely further refine those things a little bit more. And we will kind of suggest things that you can start working on, because that's going to be your question. Hey, I graduated. What should I do? Should I start building my own web app? Like, and we're going to slow you down. No, you shouldn't. Let's focus on these things instead, right? And we'll kind of give you small tasks to work on, again, with the priority being applying to jobs. I tell you, mentally prep for this. The number one thing you can do to get a job after Sabio is not study more, it's apply more, right? Send out more
Okay.
applications, get more recruiter calls. You need, like, applying to jobs is going to be a skill that you also have to learn. You're going to go to Sabio and you're going to learn new skills about coding, learn new soft skills about how to ask questions, learn actual technical coding knowledge, right? When you graduate, you're going to have to learn how to be a good job applicant. That means, how do you manage your time so that you can get out tons of applications? Linda offered some advice there, right? Okay. How do you, let's say you get a bunch of recruiter calls. The first few recruiter calls that you get, you're probably not going to sell yourself as well as you could, right? By the time you're at recruiter call number 50, you're going to be wheeling and dealing. You're going to be really hyping your skills up, doing a good job, convincing them that you're a great candidate, which is going to result in them passing you on to get interviewed, right? Then the first couple interviews you do, you may not do so well, but you'll learn from those to make you better at interviewing. So what you're doing is, by having a large number of applications, you're giving yourself the reps and the experience to make yourself a great candidate when you show up to each of those steps in the process, right? To make it so that you do a great interview, to make it so you do a great recruiter call. And that's kind of, so you say, what can I do when I graduate to set myself up for success? First of all, you're going to be given a mentor who's going to tell you, but that's the answer for now. Like, that's what I tell everybody who graduates. Hey, you ready? It's time to, Linda said, it's not over when you graduate. Everyone wants to celebrate. I did it. I graduated. That was the easy part, guys. Here's the part where you have to self-motivate, right? Back then, you had Barnett fussing at you. Hey, make sure you get this turned in on time or whatever, right? Make sure you're studying for your exam. Okay. But now you don't really have anybody fussing at you. It's time for you to buckle down, you to focus on getting out these applications, spend a little bit of time doing some side work on some coding exercises that your mentor gives you, or that Sabio hosts. So like, Sabio hosts for alumni advanced React classes, advanced C# classes, and they have two, it's called data structures and algorithms. You don't need to worry about it till you graduate, but there's these 4 courses that go up every single week that you can be a part of. We have a senior, like a graduate project that took off a couple weeks ago. That is, I'm leading it with another graduate who wanted to start it, and I'm just kind of helping guide it, really. He's building this really big application for the city of LA. Like, just, it's a long story, but anyway, there's a project that you could be a part of and start working on some code there too, right? So there's a ton of things once you graduate, if you want to do them. Most of the people that I work with that are graduates don't participate. I teach the React class. How many graduates do I see in my React class? Like 6. And I know for sure there's more than 6 unemployed graduates that are still looking for work. So it's up to you to decide how much energy you want to put into it, right? What do you want to get out of it? Like, this is 100% like the American dream kind of program. Hey, work really hard, you'll get great results. Don't work really hard, I promise you won't get good results. Bottom line, like, you will have unlimited opportunities. You just have to do it.
Okay.
And just
Thank
to
you.
add to that, everybody graduates at a different level. Like, even though we're all seeing the same thing, some people started with more skills than others. So what I do as a mentor is, like, I do kind of like a mock interview with my mentees, see where they at, and, like, work accordingly. Okay, like, this is something that you gotta look at, or from the speech that they're saying to the recruiters, how can they prepare better, make bullet points maybe, so at the beginning, so you remember, like, to mention certain things. And then moving to the technical skills, Sabio does provide you with a technical list of technical questions that you could be asked, but there's you know, maybe certain concepts that you don't understand correctly. So like going through the mock interviews, like we can see where you're really at, so we could see what you need to work on. So it really depends from person to person. But like I mentioned to you a couple of times, like Sabio does definitely give you the right tools for you to be successful. And like Joe mentioned, there's calls out there, like there's classes out there, and a lot of them are with the alumni. They're great, honestly. Like they're super knowledgeable, and like you should take advantage of it once you graduate, because that is definitely going to set you up for success when you go through those interviews.
Okay.
So
Okay. Thank you.
Sabio pays us to like meet with you guys. So the longer you don't have a job, the more they have to pay us. All right. They want you to get a job so bad so that they could stop paying us to meet with you. Okay. They have financial incentive for you to get a job. Like that's all you need to know, is that this is a business that wants to make money, and paying us to meet with you for you to not get a job is not what they want. They want you to get a job right away to save money. So I mean, everything that they do is designed around, how can I get Darian the fastest job possible so we can save money, right? Like just
Right.
like understand that.
Okay. And then just one more question. So as far as I know you guys both said that you've applied to a bunch of jobs afterwards. Is there a specific kind of job? So like I know like you have the full stack and then you have the back end or front end. Is there like a specific one that, let's say, like Sabio graduates usually kind of gear towards, or is it just whatever you kind of want to do or whatever you gravitate towards, that's one you'd pick?
You
Yeah.
do everything. 1,000 apps a week, bro. You're applying to everything.
Yeah.
You're not picking and choosing. You're going to everything.
And there's
Right.
so many titles that can apply to this, like full stack, front end, React developer, JavaScript developer, SQL developer, you know, .NET, software engineer, software developer. Like there, it opens the doors to you to so many positions, so many titles that, you know, it really, you can really, I mean, I applied to all of them. I ended up being a back-end developer, but yeah, like it really opens the doors to you to a lot of positions out there.
I know I was talking to a student a while back once they had graduated, and they were set on like only applying for remote positions. So again, it's kind of different, but let's say you only wanted to apply for front end, and it was taking a long time. And so then they opened it up and they were hired within a week, or they had an interview, they ended up getting hired on, and within 4 months, the company let them go remote. And so he was sitting there, he was like, oh my God, I spent all this time applying for only remote jobs and I limited myself, and my company let me go remote as soon as I finished onboarding. So I think our biggest recommendation is you might have a preference towards a side, but again, open up the door and get those applications out. Don't limit yourself on what kind of applications you're putting out there. Let's see what happens.
And dropped a question, were you focused on salary or experience once you graduated? So I think this goes to Darian's question too, which is both of those questions are asking like sort of how picky were you, right? And the goal is Sabio has like a slogan somewhere that's like breaking into or that's the name of the Sabio podcast is breaking into tech, right? That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to go from zero to now I am being paid money. Someone has agreed to give me money every 2 weeks for me to, because I write good enough code that they're worth, that I'm worth getting paid for that, right? That's the only goal. So am I worried about what my salary is? Absolutely not. Because if I can get paid, period, to write code for you, then I did it, right? And in 6 months to a year, once my skills are better, I could go to a different company. I can try to get a raise at this company. I can do whatever I want because I did it. I'm in tech. I've got that on my resume. It's done. I did it. I'm in. It's over. Right. That's the goal here. I don't care if it's back end, front end, full stack. I don't care if it's low salary, high salary, junior software engineer or mid-level software engineer. I don't care. I want to get in the industry so that I can do anything now. I can do whatever. I have high aspirations for myself, right? So let me just get in the front door and I'll figure the rest out from there. But like, let's just get in here, see what the real world of coding is like. Let's confirm for sure that somebody will pay me to write code for them because that feels amazing and that feels crazy. And then after that, I'll start saying, y'all need to pay me more, or, start applying other places that are willing to pay me more. I've been interviewing for jobs over the last couple months that are hiring for way more money than I make right now. And I haven't gotten an offer yet, but the fact that I'm sitting in the interview with this guy, I'm like, dude, a year ago, I didn't even know how to code. This is insane. This is insane. And now you're calling me to interview me and ask me questions. Like, I broke into tech. That's your goal, is just, it doesn't matter. Let me just get in the door. Let me just prove that I'm worth getting paid to write code, sit in my house and write code for a living. This is insane.
Yeah, and touching back to what you actually said, like, yeah, I'm actually on my third position right now. So on my first position, I did not care. On the second one, I was like all for the money, right? And on the third one, I was working Central Time, living in Hawaii. So I didn't want to work at 3 a.m. anymore. So for me, it was like, okay, I really prefer either Pacific or here in Hawaii. So it really depends what are you looking for and where in your career you're at. So I would say at the beginning, I did not care. It was all about like just getting hired and putting my foot in the door. So yeah.
Great questions. I know we covered a lot in today's, we're a little over, but we can stay on if you guys have more questions. But altogether, a really good workshop, in my opinion, being able to break down what it is, the job market itself, what we have to offer. And as always, you guys always have the best insight and pieces of advice. So we appreciate you all being here.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Well, thank you. It's Wednesday today. The holiday's throwing me off. I was going to say we do have one more live workshop of the week with Barnett, but on Monday we'll have one more with Barnett. So you guys can enroll and get started on some of those courses and maybe see him on Monday. Otherwise, I know my Calendly link is in the chat. We have about a week and a half until our March 4th cohort. So if it's something that you want to be a part of, Barnett did put my Calendly link in there for me. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.